Let's talk about the COVID-19 House papers that they recently released. I have so many things to say. This is why I made a movie called Vaccination during the height of the pandemic. Actually, in the beginning of the pandemic, before any of these things happened, when everything was labeled as misinformation, that's when I made this movie. Let's talk about the COVID-19 House papers recently released by the government, a 500-page report on COVID-19 that stated that the origins of the virus most likely was from a lab leak from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. This conclusion is based on evidence like the biological characteristics of the virus and reported illnesses among the researchers at the lab in fall 2019. So the reports of these government papers critique the U.S. public health response, highlighting failures in oversight, coordination, and obviously the handling of relief funds. They criticized the effectiveness of measures like mask mandates and lockdowns, arguing that they were not based on hard science, which has now been concluded, and caused significant harm to mental and physical health, especially among young people. And this is true. I work with young people, and I remember the psychological fear that was implemented into them and by their parents during this time, and how scared they were to be near each other and to not have their mask up. They thought they were going to die, and that is still going to be very prevalent to this day and to the future after what they did with that crazy experiment and mishandling, improper torture to humanity and our society. There was significant discussion on the mismanagement of funds. Let's talk about the Paycheck Protection Program, which was noted for allowing at least $64 billion in fraudulent claims. Unemployment benefits saw over $191 billion lost to fraud, and Small Business Administration was criticized for its lack of oversight, leading to losses of about just $200 million. Where'd that $200 million go? Due to inadequate fraud protection measures. So this is all going on during the COVID-19 pandemic. This is what they did. And it confirmed that the NIH funded gain-of-function research at Wuhan Institute of Virology. Remember when they said that they weren't doing that? Indirectly supporting the lab leak theory. The oversight mechanisms for such research were described as incomplete and convoluted. Let's talk about the vaccines and public health measures. Operation Warp Speed was lauded for its rapid development of vaccines, which were described as an incredible feat of science. Now we know that's more so an incredible feat of disease and cancers and all these random illnesses that people are getting sick from who got the jab, unfortunately, this experimental mRNA vaccine. And it claimed to save millions of lives. However, the reports were also criticized for the overselling of the vaccine capabilities and preventing transmission or infection, contributing to public mistrust, recommendations, and yeah. So these documents that the government released serve as a roadmap to future pandemics, encouraging better preparedness, transparency, and accountability. Transparency, that's a key word in how the government responds. The subcommittee emphasized that the need for a whole of America response without personal bias or benefit, that's for sure. We know who biased and who benefited this year, or last year, or the year before, or those years. Let's talk about the posts on X that indicated that the findings of the COVID-19 virus and its origins, along with masking, social distancing, stay 6 feet apart, or you'll end up 6 feet under, and all that propaganda that they used wholeheartedly. Posts on X indicate that these findings have been met with claims that conspiracy theorists were correct, which is now true. Because let me just tell you this, everything that we thought previously about the COVID-19 origins, about masking, about the vaccines, everything that was labeled as conspiracy and misinformation has now been concluded by the government, by the House, as true, making everything that the conspiracy theorists and all the skeptics said, making it a reality and making it true, and the government admitting to it being true in a 500-page paper of analysis from specialists about the COVID-19 origins and all of the lockdown measures, the mandatory vaccinations, all of the psychological, mental and physical, economic, and chaotic social destruction that we felt as to be true and were basically attacked and villainized and labeled as crazy, is now true and concluded by the government themselves that it is true. I can't say that it's true enough, that it's not even an ego thing, but we were right. It's just that we were lied to so immensely, and they were so adamant about us being essentially nuts and lying and spreading death misinformation as in death about telling people not to potentially get vaccinated with this thing or get this experimental mRNA vaccine, we were being labeled as people who shouldn't even exist by politicians, by organizations, by our fellow human beings, because they weaponize people and polarize the issue and to make people fight and segregate even more, just like they do with cultural issues. They make this a cultural issue as well, all while making an immense amount of profit. So now everything that we once thought has been deemed true by the United States government.